All right. Good morning. My name is Jeff Jepson. I'm a Senior Air Quality Specialist in the Compliance Branch of the Air Quality Management Division of Northern Nevada Public Health. Today we are hosting a workshop on asbestos renovation and demolition requirements in Washoe County. The workshop will consist of a 30 to 40-minute presentation, followed by a question and answer period and opportunity for discussion. The workshop is in a webinar format. The presentation will be recorded. If you drop out early, the AQMD intends to make the presentation available as a resource on the AQMD website. All attendees are currently muted. If you have a question or comment, please use the raise hand function and you will be unmuted following the presentation. You can also type any questions into the chat. Please be respectful with any questions, comments, or information added to the chat. Any attendee who does not abide by Northern Nevada Public Health's customer conduct policy may be ejected from the webinar. With those items said, I will turn things over to our air quality specialist, Megan Rennie, who will be making today's presentation. Thank you for your interest and participation.
Good morning, everybody. As Jeff said, my name is Megan. So we just want to cover a little bit about our NESHAP regulations today. And just to let you know who we are, we're the Air Quality Management Division, and we are dedicated to the protection of air quality and the safeguard of public health for all of Washoe County through the development and implementation of effective programs and regulations while supporting economic growth and community partnerships. And the AQMD is made up of 4 branches. So we have monitoring, which measures air pollution levels. Our planning department compares that data with the EPA standards, and they work with our permitting branch to seek, develop, and implement strategies. Then the compliance branch seeks to ensure that those strategies are being properly implemented and followed. And the compliance branch regulates stationary sources, construction sites, and asbestos abatement throughout Washoe County. For today, our agenda in the workshop will include a brief discussion on health risks. We will cover the acknowledgement requirements and what information is required for the application. We will lightly cover some of the new asbestos regulations. After that, we will cover our requirements for the NESHAP and removal of asbestos through abatement and the demolition of buildings in Washoe County. And then finally, we will cover some of what is expected during compliance inspections and some of the common issues that we observe while we are out in the field. So asbestos is dangerous because it can break down into microscopically thin fibers. These fibers are so small that they can remain airborne for days after they were initially disturbed. While airborne, individuals can breathe these fibers in, and the fibers can travel deep into a person's lungs, where they may eventually lodge in the lung tissue. Once lodged in the tissue, these fibers can cause several serious diseases, including lung cancer, asbestosis, which is on the right, it's the scarring of the lung tissue, and then mesothelioma on the left, which is a cancer of the lining of the lung cavity. Asbestos is a naturally occurring mineral that has an ability to resist heat and fire, which makes it great for insulation, fireproofing, and fire-resistant materials. It also has an ability to add strength to materials like building foundations or asbestos cement products. These common products, like wall texture, popcorn ceiling, and mastics, are found in buildings and are considered to be suspect of containing asbestos. Generally, materials that contain asbestos have no defining visual difference, odor, or taste compared to material that does not contain asbestos. So, the best practice is to handle any suspect material as if it has asbestos in it. Testing material is the only way to prove that it does not contain asbestos. Historically, asbestos was widely used in a variety of building materials, insulation, roofing products, and fireproofing. Use of asbestos in the United States significantly decreased in the late 20th century, but some products containing asbestos are still imported and still in use today. Attempts to implement a total ban on asbestos in the United States have been unsuccessful. Materials should be assumed to contain asbestos unless testing proves otherwise. The AQMD asbestos program implements and enforces the NESHAP Subpart M, the District Board of Health 040110 and 040115. the AQMD has been given the delegated authority to enforce the NESHAP from the EPA. The NESHAP stands for National Emission Standards for Hazardous Air Pollutants. Air quality does like its acronyms. These regulations apply to renovations and demolition activities at any facility where there may be disturbance of suspect asbestos-containing material or complete demolition, which is demolition to the ground, of any structure, including single-family residences. A facility means any institutional, commercial, public, industrial, or residential structure, installation, or building, including condominiums or individual dwelling units operated as a residential cooperative, but it excludes residential buildings having 4 or fewer dwelling units. And suspect asbestos-containing material means material that must be presumed to be asbestos-containing unless demonstrated otherwise. So when applying for a building permit, the building department requires an acknowledgement of asbestos assessment. You may have heard them referred to as an asbestos letter or a pink slip. The acknowledgement is used to verify that the materials that will be disturbed during a renovation or a demolition have been properly tested for asbestos. This is to ensure that public health is being protected through proper testing of materials. You can find a list of HERA licensed abatement companies available on our website in the resources section of the asbestos page. The requirement to complete an asbestos survey as specified in Part 040110 applies to every project where disturbance of a suspect asbestos-containing material may occur, regardless of length, area, or volume of disturbance. The application requires a consultant's report with testing results, a copy of the demolition plans, and any other information that may be helpful in determining the scope of work for the project. If everything is received and no further information is needed, the AQM will issue an invoice for payment and issue the AAA for you. The fastest way to get an acknowledgement approved is by submitting online through our citizen portal at 1nv.us. The application can be found under the Health District tab. Detailed instructions for submitting online can be found on our website, ourcleanair.com, and a video is also available that will walk you through the steps of the application. You can also apply via email or by submitting a physical copy. The PDF version of the application can be found on our website under the Asbestos tab. These methods still require the demolition plans and the consultant's asbestos report to be submitted at the same time as the application. If you want to submit by email, send in a complete application and all required information to aqmdasbestos@nnph.org. For a mail-in or drop-off application, our mailing address is listed on the slide, and you can also find it on our website. We are located in Building B. The drop box can be found there outside the Vital Statistics office. We do not have a window anymore for handling it off to a person. Earlier this year, the AQMD adopted new asbestos regulations. Here's a brief look at some of the new regulations in Washoe County. Some changes have occurred to what is required for the asbestos survey. The biggest change is that only an HERA building inspector may perform an asbestos survey. There have been some changes to survey procedures and sampling requirements as well. Along with some of these changes, the sites are now required to maintain copies of the consultant's asbestos report on site. So the requirements for the surveys should now include more detailed descriptive information about the building, where the survey occurred, including the age and the use of the building. The surveys must include more detailed information about the process and findings about the asbestos, like square footage amounts of ACM. ACM stands for asbestos-containing material, descriptions about the ACM's conditions, and also include the consultant's certifications. ACM can be found by testing a material, or if you don't want to test a material, it can be assumed to contain asbestos. A consultant will need to determine if a material is considered friable or non-friable. So let's say that a survey has found friable material that contains asbestos, and those will be disturbed during the project. What does that mean? Well, friable material means that it's easy for asbestos fibers to be released into the air by disturbing the material. Non-friable material means that asbestos is much less likely to release the fibers of asbestos when disturbed. But just in case, just because a material says it is non-friable, it does not mean that it is safe. Removal methods matter. Let's take a great look from New Zealand's SQN Asbestos Consulting. I think that's a great video. So if the survey does find that materials containing asbestos are going to be disturbed, then the regulated asbestos-containing material must be abated by a proper method. Rackham is a friable material or any non-friable material that may be rendered friable during removal. This requires proper training and responsible removal processes to prevent release of fibers into the air. If the threshold amounts of rackham are going to be disturbed, a NESHAP notification is required to be submitted with a wet ink signature 10 working days prior to the start of the project. Threshold amounts are 260 linear feet on pipes, 160 square feet on other components, or 35 cubic feet when an area can't accurately be measured. Please be aware that OSHA has different requirements and different notification processes on asbestos, and their regulations should be consulted to remain compliant with all regulatory authorities. So the NESHAP form must be filled out completely and submitted with payment. If upon review the AQMD does determine that the form is incomplete or the starting date does not meet requirements, work cannot start until the form is corrected and payment is received. The NESHAP forms can be found under the Asbestos tab or under the Forms tab at ourcleanair.com. This form should be used from the website just in case we make any changes or adjustments to the form. Once approved, this form must be kept on site along with a copy of the consultant's report and sampling results during abatement or demolition. If the project is delayed or is not completed within 1 year of the start of the project, a new NESHAP will be required to be submitted with notification. So here's the first page of the NESHAP form. Each section must be completely filled out. In order for this form to be accepted, it must be properly filled out as well. A workday means Monday through Friday and includes holidays that fall on any of the days Monday through Friday. The form on the website does contain more detailed instructions, but if there are any questions, please contact us. Section 5 should only be submitted if it's an emergency like a displaced tenant and it does not apply for failing to properly give us notification for the 10-day notice. Make sure that you include all of the contact information for everybody involved, including the owner of the facility, the asbestos removal contractor, and the asbestos consultant. Down in Section 6, the facility description, please fill out all of the information, and you can find that through the Washoe County website, but if you need help, please give us a call. It can be a lot at times. Section 7 does need to include all forms of asbestos, even non-friable. If the project will be removing a large number of various materials, please submit an addendum of the materials on a separate sheet. Section 8 at the top should include all of the planned renovation work and methods that will be performed. Section 9 needs to be properly filled out so that we know the correct work practices of removal are happening. For example, if the site has ACM tiles and you use a mechanical removal method, it could render the non-friable material friable. In Section 10, it should include plans on what to do if unexpected ACM is found during the work, or if non-friable material has become friable during the removal process. And finally, make sure that it's signed. That way we can accept it. So when there are changes to the project, please use this revision form. This should be used when start or stop dates change. You must update the notice as soon as possible. If the site needs to start earlier than originally reported, it still cannot start before what the original 10-day working notice would be. The AQMD must be notified of the new start date as soon as possible before, but no later than, the original start date. A project should not begin on any other date than the date that has been submitted to the AQMD. And if needed, update the AQMD if the amount of asbestos in a project changes by at least 20%. We use a separate notification for demolitions. The demolition notice also requires a 10-day working period, just like the renovation form. This form is required for all demolitions in Washoe County, including residential properties. The only structures that do not require notification are those that are less than 120 square roof feet and do not contain asbestos. Single-family homes are required to fill out a notification along with the 10-day working notice. The demolition operation that will begin after the date contained in the original start date. The AQMD must be notified of the new start date as soon as possible, but no later than the original start date. If the demolition operation will begin earlier than the date contained in the notification, AQMD must be notified of the new start date, and it still does require the 10-day working notification prior to the start of the demolition operation. Include any remaining asbestos materials in Section 6, like Category 1 can be left in if it is still in good condition. If Category 2 is left in place, please provide detail on how the work will be performed to prevent the material from becoming friable. Provide all contact information on the company that will transport the waste and all the contact information for the waste disposal site. Next, we will cover some of the procedures for emission control. Remove any rackham before any activity can break up, dislodge, or disturb the material to prevent fiber release. Some materials can be left in place, like Category 1 non-friable materials that are in good condition or materials that are encased in concrete or something similar. But you must keep any material left in place adequately wet. If these items will be subjected to any sanding, grinding, cutting, or abrading, the materials do become subject to provisions. If a material was not accessible during the survey for testing and was discovered during demolition, but it is not safe to remove it, it is okay to stay in place. Asbestos cement products, like transite panels, must be removed prior to demolition. If rackham is not safe to get to, like it's on a collapsing roof, keep it wet. That's going to be another theme besides our acronyms. Carefully remove any coated pieces. Keep adequately wet during cutting or disjointing. For anything being removed in pieces, make sure to handle it safely and properly. Don't drop or throw the materials. That could cause damage and cause a potential fiber release. If stripping the components of asbestos, keep it wet and use proper ventilation systems. If you're using a ventilation system, the system must exhibit no visible emissions to the outside air or be designed and operated in accordance with the requirements. For large components like reactor vessels, it does not need to be stripped if it will be removed, transported, stored, disposed of, or reused without disturbing or damaging the rackham. If any of the components, they must be properly wrapped and labeled. Keeping the rackham adequately wet is the best practice, but it's not always the safest in our climate. If you feel wetting will cause safety concerns or cause damage to equipment, please contact us at Air Quality prior to starting any of the work. Written approval is required from the AQMD, and this approval letter must be kept on site along with the sampling report and the NESHAP form. When temperatures are at or below freezing, wetting is not required, and any coated component should be kept as units or sections as much as possible. When wetting is suspended, there are records that are required for operations not using the wetting method. Temperatures must be recorded at the site 3 times a day, at the start of the day, in the middle of the day, and at the end. These temperature records will be retained for at least 2 years. If no wetting is going to be used, these records will be reviewed during a compliance inspection. So no asbestos can be removed without a trained person on site to ensure safe methods of removal are being used. A trained supervisor is required on site. AQMD will check the supervisor training during site visits. If a building is demolished under an order of a state or local government agency because the facility is structurally unsound and in danger of imminent collapse, notify us as early as possible before, but no later than, the following workday if the operation is an ordered demolition. These sites must be kept adequately wet during demolition. If the building will be burned down intentionally, all asbestos must be removed, even the Category 1 non-friable materials. Next, we will cover the disposal of the asbestos waste. As always, keep the waste adequately wet. Don't allow any visible emissions to the outside air during the collection, processing, packaging, or transporting of any asbestos-containing waste material. Seal all wet asbestos in leak-tight containers. Label the containers properly with the waste generator labels that are defined by OSHA. And, when transporting the waste, label it all with where it was generated and the company's name that generated it. For the previously mentioned facilities where rackham is left in the building during demolition, keep it adequately wet at all times. Remember, it can be left in place if it is Category 1 non-friable ACM that is not in poor condition and is not friable. If it is on a facility component that is encased in concrete or other similarly hard material and is adequately wet whenever exposed during demolition. If it was not accessible for testing, was therefore not discovered until after demolition began, and as a result of the demolition, the material cannot be safely removed, and if not removed for safety reasons, the exposed rackham and any asbestos-contaminated debris must be treated as asbestos-containing waste material and kept adequately wet at all times. Always keep the material wet during demolition. So asbestos waste should be disposed of as soon as practical at an approved waste site. A vehicle should be marked with a sign similar to the image shown. It should be about 20 inches by 14 inches and displayed so it is easily readable. Fill out the waste records and keep these records for 2 years. Air quality is requesting these records for review as part of compliance inspections. Companies should expect to receive requests for the waste shipment records. The forms should be similar to the example from Figure 4 located in the NESHAP. These should have the company information and contact information, the information for the regulatory group, like the EPA Region 9 or air quality, the amounts of material being disposed of, the disposal company, and the waste disposal site's information. These should be signed and certify that the contents are accurately described and are properly marked and labeled. Retain a copy of all waste shipment records, including a copy of the waste shipment record signed by the owner or operator of the designated waste disposal site for at least 2 years. And please be careful and make sure that you are following all highway, international, and government regulations. Finally today, we will briefly discuss what we look for during a compliance inspection and some of the common issues that we find. When we arrive at an abatement or a demolition, we will look at several things. First, we will look at the containment area and check for any holes or damage to the containment. We will check to make sure that the activities on the NESHAP are reflective on the activities on site. We will absorb the work through the viewpoints. We'll look at the methods of removal and make sure that they match the NESHAP as well. Waste containers will be examined. We will look for the bags to make sure that the contents are adequately wet and double bagged and have the appropriate labels. We'll check the waste generator labels and make sure that all the proper information is filled out. We will look for both OSHA warning labels and waste generators on every bag. We will also check any records that are needed. We'll look at the NESHAP report. We'll check the sampling report, supervisor's proof of training, and if necessary, we will also check any records for temperatures if that's needed. And we'll look at some common compliance issues that we find on site when we are inspecting. One of our most common issues we find is that sites are not in compliance with the NESHAP 10-day waiting periods and failing to notify us properly when there are changes to the start dates. We find that some companies don't notify us at all prior to starting abatement work. Sometimes we find that sites are not properly posting warning signs, and we may find some situations where no adequate water is being used on site or with the waste that is being disposed of. Finally, sometimes we find that some companies do fail to keep the waste generator records. So, thank you for taking the time today and joining us for this overview of the asbestos NESHAP. Please visit ourcleanair.com for more information on asbestos and our regulations. Check out some of our other programs like permitting and upcoming news. On this page, you can also find more information on current air quality or on other programs like the up-and-coming bird code season. Do we have any questions about what we covered today at this time? You can hit the raise hand if you have any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. Yeah, you can use the raise hand function like Megan said. You can type questions into the chat. Also on that screen, do you have the blown up of our email, Megan? It's down under the contacts on our website, AQMD Contact Us. There we go. If you don't want to ask questions here or type them into the chat, please reach out to us at either of those emails. AQMD Contact Us is good for kind of any air quality question. It'll get routed to the correct program. If it's specific to asbestos or NESHAP, you can direct it directly to that program at aqmdasbestos@nnph.org. All right, we leave it open for a minute here, see if there's any questions.
Oh, it looks like we had a question in the chat.
Let's look. Are there any assistance programs available to homeowners to help mitigate removal costs? Unfortunately, no. I'm not aware of any programs to help mitigate homeowners with removal costs. One thing I'll note too, for single-family residences, they're actually not considered a facility, so they're actually exempt from a lot of the notification and requirements in the NESHAP. We can get into some more specifics if you'd like there, or reach out directly. It would probably be better if you have a specific question about a specific scenario. See if I can unmute you, Dave. I see you got your hand raised. All right, you should be able to unmute yourself. Okay, all right, thanks, Dave. You said he'll reach out directly.
Yeah.
All right.
Any other questions?
All right. Oh, looks like I see somebody
Macy
typing in the chat. All right. And a 3 or 4 bag non-friable job be transported in an open truck. I would probably actually defer to reaching out to Department of Transportation on that. I believe the answer is yes, but you need to have it adequately contained. But that's more of a Department of Transportation requirement. So please reach out to them directly, for to ensure that those requirements are met. All right. Anybody have anything else? All right, not seeing anything else. If you think of something later, please reach out at one of those contacts or give us a phone call. All right, thank you everybody for your interest and participation. We look forward to seeing you in the field.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Have a great day.